63, take one.
92, take one.
This film is about people, many of them disabled, but all of them linked through their involvement, often over many years, with the Spastic Society. We wouldn't claim, though, that they and their views and attitudes are an exact reflection of what all disabled people think of the Society's role in their lives.
I think the responsibility...
A number of people in the film, for instance, because they have no voice, rely entirely on their parents and the Society to interpret their needs.
Yeah.
But by and large, the opinions stated in this film reflect a sense of change. Change that is seen in many of the policy statements, aims and objectives of the Society. It's the translation of statements of policy into practice that provides the basic theme of this film. On the front of the 5-year plan for the Society's work centres is a statement of its prime objective. Policy into practice. This statement provides the starting point.
I think that if you spend a lot of time with the disabled, you'll find that the majority of them are frustrated. And that frustration is bred through lack of opportunity.
When we first came here, you were told what you were fit for, and that was it.
The work was, well, if I say mediocre, that would be putting it politely.
Well, it was just a case of coming for something to do, but as far as job satisfaction was concerned, there was nothing.
You know, they were there to be occupied. The staff were there to administer, and that was that.
For 8.5 years, I worked on the floor and became assistant manager, and saw that the changes were needed in the attitudes of people towards the disabled. Not only the attitudes of able-bodied people towards the disabled, but the disabled to the disabled.
I think the disabled, from their attitudes in past years, have been very much to blame. If we'd stood up and said, look here, this is what we want to do, long before we had started doing it as a body, I think none of this would have happened.
Oh, I was utterly disgusted, demoralised. I didn't, in my own case, I didn't do anything at all. But as you say, I just killed time and, you know, waited for something better.
One of the first things that I set about doing is changing the management structure at Surrey, showing that there's a ladder of promotion, a ladder of development within this unit here, for individuals who want to participate and who have the potential to develop. So we changed the structure. We added 2 more points of management, first line management, the line leader and the section leader. We then analysed what jobs these individuals needed to do, so we developed job descriptions. It's not a matter of sticking badges on individuals and saying, well, that's your job, you've got a badge, carry it around. No, we analysed the job. We wrote a job description. Then we set up a training pattern for the individuals. And this is what's happened.
I know the support bar is strictly loose, right? Okay. Yeah. Right. Black checks are not there. Right? You can just get it, bring them all out and count them again. Got all a little piece of card to go with it, see? Aye. Red cards, you know.
I'll include the call that's gone out that you've done today.
They know what they have to do in the week. They have a schedule which they have to produce, and they have to produce it. If they don't, they attend a production meeting and that's the reasons why it wasn't produced. It is their responsibility. All we've done is given them the responsibility, and they've taken it and they're using it. They're communicating with one another. This doesn't happen all the time, as you know, in other places. Too many people are static. Too many people are seeking permission to do something. What we have done by giving the job description to the individual, they know their authority. They are people of responsibility. Decisions. Tom Jones, for example, is making decisions every minute of every day.
What we have done now is we have created a career structure within the industrial units which has given the workforce a more responsible attitude to their work. It has also increased the awareness of the responsibilities of the workforce towards their work.
It's the past 8 months that I've been stressed. The scheme has been going for 18 years, but I haven't been in it for the full 18 because I was so much against it. The thing is, there's been a lot of things started in the past and they've just flopped. You know, like I thought in the beginning it was just going to be a badge and right, I'm say a line leader or a section leader, but the responsibility wouldn't be there to match. And once I found out that the responsibility was there to match, I took the chance.
Now we feel throughout the unit that we are actually doing a job on a par with open industry, and therefore there is a purpose, there is a meaning to what we're doing, and this is vitally important.
What we have done here is use production as a model, the disciplines of production to develop the individual. So the individual will develop not only in the craft way, but all the social ways as well.
Say if I'm buying something in the shop and I find that there's something wrong with it, I can go back with confidence and explain to them what I mean and things like this. And it helps you build up confidence all around, because you're dealing with salesmen and all different representatives in work, so it helps you deal with people outside.
I think the future of the society depends on the disabled within the society and not the able-bodied. I think the way we ought to go is the way that they want to go. But I think it's important that before we set out on any program like this, that clearly we understand what the objectives are. And this is the development of the individual. And that individual's right within the society to have a say in what the society is going to do.
Decisions influence policy, and policy affects people, the client, the disabled person. So to what degree, at either regional or national level, does the disabled person have a say? Ron Gerber is the chairman of the Society's National Consumer Group.
The group is made up overwhelmingly of disabled people plus the director, and was set up to examine problems of importance to disabled people. But its role has been purely advisory, and its influence within the society has remained minimal.
We had the very good news during the week, maybe some of you heard it on the media, but that leaves another 250,000 missing, and the society will no doubt be arranging an appeal.
Things aren't much better at regional level, although here, at a committee meeting of local groups in the Northwest region, 2 of the delegates are spastic people.
When I look round the room, it's quite threatening. I'm surrounded by parents of cerebrally palsied people. My views are not the same as the majority of people that are there, and I can't expect people to understand the way I see the situation, whatever it is and whatever subject we're discussing, because they see it from an able-bodied world and I see it from a disabled person's point of view. And it takes a great lot of insight for an able-bodied person to put themselves in the same situation.
Yes, but what I meant was that if they're making all these inquiries, it's obvious that they're going to push for places.
I think they fear that if cerebrally palsied people are involved on an equal basis, that the change that will be involved in that will be too drastic for them to be able to cope with. It questions a lot of their accepted attitudes and beliefs about disability and the sorts of services that the disabled people want for themselves. Well, it's called a consumer group at the moment, although the title might change. And I think, well, this is a problem. Well, a consumer group is a group of spastics that have an opportunity to express their opinions about problems that affect them and hopefully influence, perhaps change within the society, or influence where the money's going and things like that.
People could turn around though and say, what right have you, any more than me, to say what a spastic person who hasn't, say, got your mentality, to say what they want. We've neither of us any real right, but they can't speak for themselves. So your views may be no better than mine, or vice versa. Do you know what I'm getting at?
I understand, but what I feel is that perhaps the consumer group would be a forum whereby people will be intimidated by this sort of group, would have the opportunity to express their opinions in a more formal...
going in Blackpool, rather than have them on the committee itself, where we found that certain aspects that we discussed could cause embarrassment, which I think it can at times. We said, look, those of you that are interested, and there may be half a dozen who could do this, form a subcommittee, talk about the things you like, the things you don't like that we do for you, anything you feel that we ought to be doing that we're not doing, and each month put in either a written report or something, and we will discuss it. And it never got off the ground because they just lost interest. They preferred somebody else to think for them. I don't say it's a good thing.
Lots of them aren't capable of making them.
I know.
One encouraging thing at this meeting last week, there were 3 members from Chester Work Centre, and they were very interested and they wanted to get involved, and they wanted very much for it to be a democratic basis of the organisation. They wanted to elect representatives to the regional consumer group from the work centre, and the sort of response we've had from other centres is that, you know, they want the people there to be involved and to elect a representative, very much in the way that local groups. I've not in the past been very militant about things like this, but while I was at Manchester University, I suddenly came up across this problem of transport. How in the hell was I going to do my research when I was having to travel on public transport? And there was nobody, no agency, nothing. I couldn't get any help from anywhere. And it was then that I realised that to get change, one had to do it yourself. And it's from that point that I've become more militant, more involved in consumer groups.
I don't see that bringing people together, like you're talking about, from a long way away, to talk about those very problems which we're already trying to do something about, is really going to achieve anything in the end.
Well, to be involved, if we find, 6 or 7 in the region that want to be involved and want to do things to help the situation, to improve facilities in their area,
but then you are now suggesting that we're not trying to improve facilities, and we spend our life trying to.
No, I'm not saying that you don't, but I'm saying that, is it wrong that spastic should be there?
No, it's not wrong at all.
I just feel that if nothing else, if we build up the confidence of the disabled to express.
What is interesting about this sequence is the gap between each side's perception of the roles that disabled people should adopt within the society. And within this discussion are issues which are reflected outside the spastic society. To a large extent, the attitudes of the able-bodied towards the disabled are fashioned by the media. These, in turn, mirror public attitudes. So for disabled people to break through these two mirrors is often exceptionally difficult.
Most films, television plays, articles that come out about the people with disabilities are sentimental, weepy, slush, written by able-bodied people. And people, when they come to it, are only paying attention 50% of the time, because they're making up the rest of it in their own heads. And in order to wake them up, because you must wake them up, in order to get them to listen to you, you have to carry out shock tactics. But those shock tactics have to come from people with disabilities.
well, a blind, a crippled and black. Well, I've got everything I need to be a famous rock and roll star. Yes, I've got...
I don't think the able-bodied establishment has got used to the idea that people with disabilities have a sense of humour and that they have an awareness of their situation and are able to see the irony, the humour of where they're at.
The crippled and black. Oh, how I love my singing style. Oh, I'm blind, crippled and blind. And the spasms drives them wild. And it ain't my epileptic fits. It's better I can that it's because I'm blind, a crippled and black. I'm baby, I won't look back. Okay, everybody, you have now seen what a great potential you have to be a rock and roll star if you're blind, and if you're crippled, and if you're black. But let me tell you something. If I was also gay, and if I were Jewish, and if I were a communist, I'd be in seventh heaven.
Good evening, everybody. Tonight I am going to teach you how to cook an omelette. As you can see, we have all the ingredients with us. A fry pan, saucepan, milk, eggs. But the first thing I must do is take my water off, since that is not egg-proof. Then you get the eggs. If you don't break them, get in the man. That reminds me of somebody.
Jag attempting an omelette isn't an expression of him taking the mickey out of himself, but he's in fact taking the mickey out of people's attitudes towards him. They don't expect a spastic to be trying to fry an egg or crack an egg open. They don't think that they can do it. It's a bit like expecting a spastic to commit suicide by shooting themselves in the head. You know, they probably imagine that they'd keep missing the whole time.
There is also emerging a healthy questioning by disabled people about the ability of charities to respond to their aspirations and needs. This scepticism is reflected in the growing number of pressure groups, consumer associations, self-help groups and resource centres that threaten to wrest the initiative from the established charities, particularly in the field of those two emotive words, equality and independence.
The most important thing for me is independence. What I mean by that isn't exactly what I think most people mean, doing everything for myself, like dressing myself, making my own meals, things like that. It would be nice to be able to do these things, but I can't. So I have to protect my independence in other ways. Independence is much more than that anyway. It means freedom of spirit, freedom to be what I am and do what I like without interference. I suppose it's all about personal integrity. Of course, it's difficult to preserve this kind of independence while having to rely on other people for all your personal needs. The whole ethos of care tends to militate against your personal integrity. You have to work very hard at putting people at their ease. You have to employ dozens of strategies to help able-bodied people see beyond this rather inert object, me. Deny someone's humanity and you deny your own. Recognise the able-body's straining and hang-ups as a bigger problem than your own, and you can begin to discover independence. I find it is possible to maintain equality in a care situation simply by behaving instinctively towards people. Most of the carers here are untrained, which is an advantage, for most trained staff find it very difficult. They usually think they know better than you do what you need, and think in straight lines. They have a status to maintain too. Maybe it's the fault of the training, but they lose their instincts. Fortunately, most of the carers here are untrained, and this tends to help because they have no preset boundaries. They define these as you go along, just as you do in any other human relationship.
Glyn Vernon lives in one of the 24 flats at the Centre for Independent Living in Milton Keynes. Although specially designed, these flats are dotted around the Neath Hill estate and from the outside are indistinguishable from the other houses. The care of the residents is provided by a team of part-time care assistants prepared to do anything from toileting to cooking meals. This team work under the supervision of a care organiser from a central point, an ordinary house on the estate which is connected by intercom to the 24 flats. The scheme does provide a base from which people have every chance to integrate into the growing community of Milton Keynes. And it should be said that this city is probably the only one in Britain where this scheme could operate effectively. Having been built over the last 10 years, every effort's been made to accommodate the needs of the disabled. And in terms of mobility, it's a dream city. This means that disabled people are more in evidence here than anywhere else in Britain. And as a consequence, the general population, by and large, accept the disabled as part of their community.
Oh, sorry, stop that.
For us all, though, it's still somehow unreal in many ways, because we're still caught in the Part 3 trap. Social Security is taken from you as part payment of fees. When the gas, electricity or telephone bill pops through the letterbox, it's sent to the scheme's organiser, and the society pays it. In so many ways we're protected, and as a consequence managed. Needs change as life changes, but we have the same rigid timetable day after day. We don't even decide what time to get up, or when we would like to eat.
Okay. But you want some of that food away, don't you?
Yeah.
In the bank. All right.
And life can't be genuinely independent because we're protected from the realities, often harsh ones. But realities make you grow up. These might seem trivial things, but when you're fighting for real independence as a disabled person, the fight is full of small battles. If I were really honest about Neath Hill, I think that's what I would call the scheme. A small victory. The real battle lies ahead.
Two priorities for the society in the 1980s are really, if you like, at opposite ends of the spectrum. One are the involvement much more of the articulate adult spastic person. At the other end of the spectrum you have the profoundly handicapped, profoundly mentally and physically handicapped adult, previously condemned to the subnormality hospital when their parents could no longer cope.
And the big problem is this, that the parents in particular are as worried as anything that, you know, when we die, what's going to happen to our son or daughter. And at the moment,
The profoundly handicapped adult, a ward in a long-stay hospital, is the only option available in most areas of the country, once they have no relative left to look after them. These places have been rightly condemned on many counts, but above all for the simple fact that, short of facilities and trained staff, many profoundly handicapped people deteriorate once they are denied the stimulation of more specialised care. Yet a few miles from this hospital stands one of the few centres for the profoundly handicapped, run by local groups of the Spastic Society. Granville House has been open for 30 years and caters exclusively for profoundly handicapped spastic people. The school has been running for 12 years, but as the children of the original intake grew up, so the range of Granville House's services have expanded.
It's not just myself, but many of the parents of the people who started, if you like, and pioneered the schools. As their children grew older, they tend to think, what are we going to do now, you know? And that's when we decided that we would have two classes at Granville House, simply young and old, with an arbitrary figure of who was young and who was old, you know.
Oh, very good. And again, one more time. In the bucket. Oh, I'll drop it. Very good.
That's it. Smashing, that is. Have a bit more colour on. Some of this.
That's it.
That's a good girl. That's smashing that. Come on.
we are basically one member of staff to two bodies. Now, when you come into a hospital atmosphere, you haven't got that ratio. So obviously they can't do the same amount of things to the individual person.
Now I want you to tell me as much as you can. First we'll say about this one here. I want you to tell me as much as you can. Now if you get stuck and I can't understand what you're trying to say to me, use the communicator to help yourself out, okay? Right, fine.
What we do, as I say, it's one staff to two bodies. We've got more of an individual attention. And to me this is the only thing, because the handicapped person isn't a handicapped person, it's a person with a handicap. This is the big thing, and this is where people lose out, because they think about the handicap as the first thing. It isn't, it's a person.
Apollo ones, where did they go up to? The moon. Right, now, when they've been up to the moon and that, where do they splash down in?
You've got to be thick-skinned to be a parent of a handicapped person. On the other hand, it's no use having a lot of thick-skinned people if you don't have somebody who can lead. And in that respect, you need somebody who can direct the energies of the people in that group to say, this is what we want, and do it professionally, and say, we must have it. Not please can we have it, but we must have it. Because if we don't have it, these profoundly handicapped are going to suffer.
The jobs of your life that you can't take no for an answer, and you can't because you get a knock, you turn and walk away. You've got to pursue this. I think the only thing is that you've got to have thick skin, because you get more knocks than what you do get credits. But at the end of the day, as we're doing in Stockport here, we're going to raise £250,000. You've got something to aim for. You've got a better quality of life for those people who are handicapped. And this is what it's all about, giving a better life. Now our unit is going to house 12 profoundly handicapped people. 4 of these will be on short stay, rotational, emergency, whatever you wish, and the other 8 will be long stay residents. Now this is a natural progression for our society, looking after the profoundly handicapped people, because as you realise that parents do go older, and once a parent is either too old or unable to look after their handicapped offspring, then I hope that we will be able to step in and fill the breach. It's all right saying about the days of the long stay hospital being numbered, but it doesn't mean a thing unless you're prepared to do something, and we are. There's far too many people that we can accommodate. Okay, once our residential's full, right, if we can, then let's build another. Simple as that. Another £250,000.
Story has it that the Spastic Society started with 4 people sitting round a table and a £5 note. Now, over 30 years later, one of the scores of local groups can confidently expect to raise £250,000 in a matter of months. But once this empty plot of land is filled and is home for 8 people, will their views be canvassed? Will their wishes be respected? These 2 questions contain an echo of previous sequences. 30 years on, the children, who have grown up within the society, are now mature adults seeking independence, seeking an outlet for their opinions. Opinions and perceptions that are often totally different from those of their parents. To practice a policy of achieving the maximum possible independence and personal fulfillment means more than just listening to them. It means involving them in decision-making at all levels. It means employing more disabled people within the society. It means, to put it baldly, sharing power.
What's happening in Stockport, Nigel?
What's happening in Stockport